Joining me now from Cairo is someone who's witnessed this whole drama play out firsthand, Egyptian journalist Ethar El-Katatney. Welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you can be here. And tell me about the feelings you had today when you saw the former president wheeled in. This is the first time, really, since he was pushed out of power in February.
It was very shocking to see, this was someone at the height of his power. We used to laugh how the president never had white hair. He always dyed his hair. And, now we could see him with white hair. He looks so weak, dressed in white. To think, he went from being in a palace to being in a cage. To watch, it's still sinking in for a lot of people. To think that I was with you on this show like a couple of months ago, watching his last speech and commenting on it. And I think for a lot of Egyptians, a very religious country, a very emotional country, it brought to light. I can actually, quote. It's like a verse. This was very, very big on the social sphere today. A quote from the Quran, a verse from the Quran, and it goes, "Oh God, you give sovereignty to whom you will, and you take sovereignty away from whom you will. You honor whom you will, and you humble whom you will," which I guess would be similar in the Bible to, the Lord taketh, and the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away.
When you see him that way, though, when people see him that way, maybe it's a strange question, but do people feel sorry for him now?
Definitely, there was a huge emotional outpouring for a lot of people, and I think particularly for the older generation, I was watching with my parents, is different for my generation, 20-somethings who haven't witnessed, who weren't there for the period where he was, seen as a true president who did do good things for the country. The symbolism of, having his sons shielding him from cameras. There were actually outside the courtroom, there were pro-Mubarak supporters, there were clashes, not as violent as we'd seen before, but there were still, rock throwing. So you had public sympathy move a lot towards the ex-president. It's present, you can hear people talking in the streets, very humiliating for him to, you saw them all in the cage, and then when the judge would be like, "Are you here?" and they would, lift their hands up like school children and be like, "Yes, present,"
Wow.
President only said maybe like 8 words, which was, "I deny the charges." But I think for a lot of people, we were actually expecting him to be, my citizens, to actually talk to people, because there's still that this was a president, it's just unbelievable to think that we've reached this point, that we managed to do this, that it's because of the protesters, because of the Egyptians, versus Saddam, for example, Saddam Hussein, that it was the will of the people, that it was Egyptians who actually brought this about, who brought about judgment.
When you talk about the feeling in the street and how there's sort of a split in the population about all of this, from a distance, this trial looks like a done deal. Like you go through the trial, and in the end, he's found guilty, and then whatever happens. Do you think it is just a sort of a public display at this point, and everybody knows what the verdict will be, or do you think that this public sentiment somehow may shape that?
Definitely the trial can go down in a lot of different ways. It's not as, just up until the trial, like you had I personally didn't think they would even appear, that they would actually happen. Today wasn't actually the trial, it was just the procedural. But the idea that, you had a lot of developments during the actual. So you had, for example, Farid Adib, who's Mubarak's lawyer, say that actually the country was run starting January 28th. The military's been in control. So this is shifting or accusing somehow that actually Mubarak and his sons aren't to blame, because January 28th, the military, quote unquote, took over.
I want to cut in on you. I want to cut in on you here just for a moment, because I want to get one other question in before we get away.
Sure.
Obviously, there are a lot of questions about what life has been like under the military rule. We'll follow up on that in the future. But in the meantime, what do you think happens if he is found guilty?
I think this will appease. So today actually appeased a lot of people, kind of if you think like a bubble of tension, especially considering that the military forcefully, evicted all the Tahrir 2 days ago. I was there just 2 days ago, and it evicted everyone by force. So there was this, again, outpouring of tension and aggression towards the military. So this kind of appeased a lot of people. So I think we'll have to see, there's a lot of different agendas. You have the Saudi Arabian, aid. There's a whole lot of different things to consider. So this could end up in a whole lot of different ways. It looks like, that he might be found guilty, but it all depends on the pulse on the street and how people look at the military. We have Egyptian TV today, spinning it as, look how transparent the military is, we're actually. So it will depend on how the people react.
And we'll keep track of that trial. I really appreciate it. Ethar El-Katatney for joining us tonight. We'll be checking in with you again in coming days. Coming up right here,